Hey guys, Mossy here from Zelda Dungeon, and today I am going to rant about the Zelda CDI games. I hate the phrase Zelda CDI, and this topic was inspired by Dark Master at the Zelda Dungeon forums. The reason I hate this term is because it lumps all three of these games into one. Zelda, the Wand of Gamelon, Link, the Faces of Evil, and Zelda's Adventure. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen some gameplay of these before. I'll probably throw a video here somewhere. Zelda, Wand of Gamelon, and Link Faces of Evil are terrible games. They're not really fun by the Zelda standard, by any means, stretch of the means. But I have a Philips CDI, and I've played a handful of games. I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, that Zelda, Wand of Gamelon, and Link Faces of Evil are the best two games that the console has to offer, at least from what I've played. They're okay. They're bad Zelda games, terrible Zelda games, but they're actually okay video games. The gameplay, the controls are not the most responsive. It's kind of confusing at times, but you know they're playable. The story doesn't really make sense, but it's silly and very humorous. It's like a puzzle though. You gotta get items from one place. It's like a scavenger hunt. You get an item, you gotta use it here. You get another item, use it here. I actually, at no point when playing these games did I ever feel I wanted to turn off the game, put them away, and just never touch him again. I played both of them till the end, and I can say that I can play them right now, and I can actually have a degree of enjoyment out of them. They're okay games, terrible Zelda games. Zelda's Adventure, on the other hand, is awful. This game sucks. This game, the biggest problem I have with Zelda's Adventure is that it is a slow game. I don't mean that in the sense of like there's like a long introduction like Skyward Sword or something before you get into the meat of the game. I mean it's slow, as in it plays slow from the beginning, as in when you go from the first screen of the game to the second screen of the game, the load times between screens, it takes like 7 seconds between by the time you stop gaining control of your character to the point where you regain your control of your character on the next screen. The game plays like the original Legend of Zelda, so it is top down. You're going from place to place. But 7 seconds or so between screens. And this has a massive, gigantic overworld. I would be willing to bet that the average person that has played this game has never beaten the second dungeon, because I can't imagine that there is a significant portion of the population that has the patience to make it past that dungeon. I played this game fairly recently, like 4 or 5 years ago or so, and I played the game all the way through in one sitting, more or less. It took me about 15 hours, but that area before the second dungeon and even the second dungeon itself was incredibly frustrating. The reason being, you got to walk like 40 or 50 screens or so from the start screen to the actual second dungeon. And it takes like 7 seconds between every single screen. So you multiply that, 40 screens or whatever, that's a rough number, I don't know exactly how many screens it is. But you multiply, say, 40 screens by 7 seconds. That's just to get there. That doesn't actually count the gameplay of you walking around. Furthermore, it's an incredibly difficult game. Your hit detection is crazy high, and enemies will just swarm you, and you can die instantly, and you're back to that beginning, and you got to walk through those same 40 screens over and over and over, and it becomes painfully frustrating to play. Like, I grew up in the NES era, and difficult games and frustrating games, that's part of gaming. This, I got through it, but I can't imagine. It's not an enjoyable experience, and just looking at this back cover makes me not want to play this game like ever again. The other problem I have with this game, that was the biggest problem, the slowness. But the inventory of items, you get like 40 or 50 items in this game, and I might think from a Zelda fan's perspective, oh, that's sweet. Not in this one, because like more than half, I'd say, of your items are actually weapons. And they're either swords, or you start with like a magic wand or so. But then you get these projectile enemy weapons. You get like a flamethrower. All these like cool sounding enemies, but they're all terrible. They all use rubies to use, so you'll constantly be running out of rubies if you use any weapon other than your wand. Furthermore, the game has this strange hit detection where if you actually swing your sword or any of your items and you hit an enemy, it will either flash blue or red, one of them indicating that you're actually doing damage and the other saying it's a worthless attack. The problem is the game never tells you that, ever, and you have to sort of figure that out on your own. The problem is most of the items early in the game, the first dungeon, and you can use any weapon and you can harm them. But by the time you get to the second dungeon, there are some enemies that, like, virtually none of your items will harm them. So I remember the first time playing the game, I'm just swiping endlessly at these enemies, and I keep dying because they're not dying, and after you hit them 40 times, then you start cycling through your inventory, and none of the items work, only to find out that there's one enemy in the second dungeon that only one specific item works against him, and it's not in the dungeon or in its immediate surrounding area. So you have to venture through the overworld, find this one guy who gives you this one item, and then have the sense to actually use that one item, which is no real difference than any of your other items, but you use that item to beat that one enemy, and then progress to the dungeon. It's terrible. Like, what? Oh, I don't know. It's such a bad game. I just get offended when they lump these three together, because these are okay. They're bad Zelda games, but okay video games. This is terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I always make the comparison that, I make the comparison using Ocarina of Time, since I think most Zelda fans enjoy Ocarina of Time. I would say the difference between Ocarina of Time and Wanda Gamelon and Faces of Evil, the level of gameplay difference between these two is huge. But I would say that difference between the games is equivalent between the difference is of these games. Meaning, Ocarina of Time is as better to these games as these games are better to Zelda's Adventure. So, maybe they make for good YouTube material watching them, but these games, Zelda's Adventure just is such a bad game. And it's extremely expensive too. You can't get it for, $400-500 I think they go for now. So, yeah, stay away from it. It's a bad game. That's that. So that's it for this episode of Mossy's Rants. I don't really have a name for this show, but I'm probably going to rant about a few things. And I have a few other non-rant discussion topics that I want to toss up on YouTube. So if you guys have any ideas for name suggestions, shoot them in the comments below. And until next time, take care.